So today we are going to start with the chapter of resources and development in geography. Now, first of all, let us understand what a resource means. So for that, I will read the text. Everything available in our environment which can be used to satisfy our needs. Clear? You know, we do from the very beginning and from the morning when we get up till the night, as I told you earlier also, that we make use of different kinds of resources. Clear? But what actually is a resource? It can be technologically accessible. Please underline this definition. This is very important. Technologically accessible. Now, how a source become a resource for us when it becomes useful. Clear? And how we make it useful when we have the required technology to assess that resource. Technologically accessible means, technology means the required know-how. know-how means कि हमारे पास पूरी नॉलेज है उसके बारे में, टेक्नोलॉजी है कि हम उस सोर्स को फाइंड आउट करें. और जैसे सपोज फॉर एग्जांपल, यू नो, ऑल काइंड्स ऑफ मिनरल्स आर एक्सट्रैक्टेड फ्रॉम द अर्थ, इनसाइड ऑफ द अर्थ. हमें पता है कि एक जगह पे यहाँ पर हमारे पास आयरन ओर के सोर्सेज हैं, यहाँ पर हमारे पास गोल्ड के सोर्सेज हैं. But if we don't have the technology to extract those, clear? So it will not become a resource for us. This is first point. Clear? Second is that it should be economically feasible. Economically feasible means that, now let's go back to the example, that if we have to extract, clear, a certain ore from the earth, then how much of the money are we spending on that? ठीक है? क्या जो हम सोर्स यूज करना चाहते हैं, जो हम एक्सट्रैक्शन करना चाहते हैं, उस पे हमारा कितना पैसा लग रहा है? एंड नेक्स्ट इज, वो फिर आप नेक्स्ट पॉइंट पढ़ोगे, देन यू विल अंडरस्टैंड. And culturally acceptable. Culturally acceptable means that those people who are living in the society, the resource should be useful for them. Culturally acceptable. Economically feasible. ये इतना ना हो कि हम उसको एक रिसोर्स को निकालने के लिए, एक्सट्रैक्ट करने के लिए हम इतना ज्यादा पैसा लगा रहे हैं, ठीक है, और बाद में अगर उसकी हम यूजफुलनेस देखते हैं, आउटपुट देखते हैं, तो हमें उस हिसाब से नहीं है. हमने इनपुट तो बहुत ज्यादा लगा दी, क्लियर, बट आउटपुट इज नॉट इन प्रोपोर्शन टू व्हाट शुड बी. क्लियर? और हमने कुछ ऐसा रिसोर्स ढूंढा वो जो हमारी सोसाइटी में उसकी इतनी रिक्वायरमेंट थी नहीं. कल्चरली नॉट एक्सेप्टेबल. क्लियर? एंड टेक्नोलॉजी, हमारे पास अपने पास उसकी टेक्नोलॉजी है कि नहीं? क्या हमें उसकी टेक्नोलॉजी इंपोर्ट तो नहीं करनी पड़ रही? अगर हम टेक्नोलॉजी इंपोर्ट कर रहे हैं तो हम उस पे और कितना पैसा लगा रहे हैं इंपोर्ट पे. क्लियर? तो हमारे लिए तो ये सारा सेटअप क्या हो जाएगा? इट विल बिकम अ वेरी एक्सपेंसिव थिंग. तो what we need to see is that should be technologically accessible, clear, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable. If you remember the definition of food security in class 9, you had done food security. हम कब कहते हैं कि we are food secure? Clear? कब कहते हैं? When food is physically, socially and economically available. Clear? अगर हम कहते हैं कि we have sufficient food, हमारे पास बहुत सिक्योरिटी है, हमारे पास बफर स्टॉक बहुत ज्यादा है, ठीक है, बट अगर वो स्टॉक लोगों को अवेलेबल ही नहीं है। अगर अवेलेबल है तो उसका रेट बहुत ज्यादा है। क्लियर? तो क्या हम कहेंगे कि वी आर फूड सिक्योर? नो, we are having large buffer stocks. You might have heard the government generally says, but there are still people in India who die of hunger or who sleep hungry. Clear? तो जब हम कहते हैं कि एक हम वी आर फूड सफिशिएंट कंट्री, फूड सफिशिएंट कंट्री की डेफिनेशन को हम तभी जस्टिफाई कर सकते हैं व्हेन नोबडी स्लीप्स हंग्री। हमारा अब आप देखो स्टॉक जो है बफर स्टॉक है हमारा, हमारी जैसे वीट की प्रोक्योरमेंट है हमारा, अब जैसे रेन वाज देयर, वीट वाज लाइंग इन द ओपन एरियाज, वीट गॉट वेट, स्पॉइल हो जाती है, अलग अलग रोडेंट्स जो हैं वो वीट को खा जाते हैं, कितनी हमारी वीट जो है स्पॉइल हो जाती है। और ऑन द अदर हैंड देयर आर सो मेनी पीपल हु डोंट हैव एक्सेस टू फूड। क्लियर? तो कहीं ना कहीं जो हम फूड सिक्योरिटी को डिफाइन करते हैं, इज इट एक्चुअली सो? इसी तरह हमारे जो रिसोर्सेज हैं जिनको हम यूज करना चाहते हैं, जिनको हम सोर्स को रिसोर्स बनाते हैं लोगों के लिए, दे शुड सेटिस्फाई दीज थ्री कंपोनेंट्स। क्लियर व्हाट वी जस्ट रेड? Next is you can see a triangle is made and in that it is written physical environment, human being, institutions and technology. Clear? Again in 9th standard you had read that human beings are the most important resource. Clear? For example, we had forests. Clear? We have water. It's not that these are something new. These have been here on the earth since time immemorial. And we know that how slowly when man developed, clear, he started thinking using these to help him. If water is just flowing in the river, floods are there, clear, and we don't know how to channelize it, how to use it, what is the usefulness of water, then it cannot become a resource for us. So all these are only possible because of the presence of human beings. Human beings interact in the nature, that is physical environment. Clear? They interact, and with the use of technology, clear, they make these resources possible to reach to the people, and they create institutions. Creating of institutions means that they create organizations. Clear? एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन बन जाती है, एक इंस्टीट्यूशन बन जाता है, ठीक है। फिर उसके जैसे अब हमारे डिफरेंट इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं। क्लियर? सपोज आई वाज गिविंग यू द एग्जांपल ऑफ एक्सट्रैक्शन ऑफ माइंस, तो उस एक्सट्रैक्शन को करने के लिए, उस माइन एक्सट्रैक्शन में से ओर्स निकालने के लिए फिर हमारी एक एसोसिएशन बन जाती है, एक इंस्टीट्यूशन बन जाता है। क्लियर? जो सारा इसको रेगुलेट करता है। इट्स नॉट देयर कि एनीवन विल गो देयर एंड स्टार्ट एक्सट्रैक्टिंग, ठीक है, ऐसा नहीं होता है ना। सो देयर इज अ प्रॉपर वे। नेक्स्ट हम जाके पढ़ेंगे रिसोर्स प्लानिंग। So when we will read resource planning, then it will be clear to you that what is the importance of institutions, right? So moving next, the process of transformation of things available in our environment involves an interdependent relationship between nature, technology, and institution. What I was just explaining you, that this diagram is given over here. So there is a relationship and interdependence. Clear? It means that any of these elements cannot exist in isolation. Now next, coming to the next paragraph, do you think that resources are free gifts of nature as is assumed by many? Free gifts of nature means, yesterday only we read about sustainability of development. Clear? So what happens that generally what we think is free for us, we always waste. Until and unless we don't pay for that. Clear? We don't become conscious of how we should use it. Clear? This is general human nature. So similarly, let's see about the resources. Resources are a function of human activity. Human beings themselves are essential component of resources. Next, they transform material available in our environment into resources and use them. Clear? So this I have already explained to you that how we make use of resources, because human beings can think. Clear? And they take like wood from the forest. Otherwise, it is there in the forest. Clear? So man thought about it. No doubt, over the times, we made misuse of the resources available to us. That's about sustainability. Again, about need and about greed. Clear? So there is a difference. If we only use how much we need, so then the environment stays protected. But if we go towards the direction of greed, clear, so obviously we'll have to face the consequences. Now these resources can be classified. That is the classification of resources. As I was mentioning earlier, that this classification of resources you will be doing from the book only. Now first is that on the basis of origin. Clear? That is biotic and abiotic. On the basis of exhaustibility. Clear? That is renewable and non-renewable. And on the basis of ownership. Who owns? That is individual, community, national and international, and on the basis of the status of development, that is potential, developed, stock and reserve. Clear? So let's see, move on to the next page, that what are the definitions of these types of resources which we have just read. Now types of resources on page number 2 of this chapter. First is biotic resources. These are obtained from biosphere. Biosphere you have read in 6th standard, 7th standard also in geography. Plus you are reading all these things in science also somewhere or the other. Biosphere and have life such as human beings, flora and fauna, fisheries, livestock, etc. So what you have to remember, biotic obtained from biosphere, have life, example, human beings, livestock, fisheries, etc. Yes. Can anyone give me the example of livestock in the chat box? Example of livestock. We have just read one example. Flora and fauna, fisheries, livestock. Yes. Please. Good. Cattle. Yes. Livestock means that you have read earlier, but sometimes these things are not clear to you. So that's why I took an example from you. Yes, good. All right, correct. So livestock, you must understand. Yes, all variety of these are together called as livestock. Okay, beta, thank you. Correct examples you are giving. It means you have understood. That's very nice. Now, next is abiotic resources. All those things which are composed of non-living things. Clear? So their examples are rocks, metals. So we have to learn briefly. To learn, as I told you of the above example, now also you can make a flow chart. All right? Just write the type, biotic, abiotic, clear, having life, non-living, example, and both the example. Later on in the exam, you can always make a sentence. But for learning, we should always note down the points briefly and learn. Clear? So here you required only 4 words to learn. Clear? Later on in the examination, as and how it is required, you can expand and make sentences. Next, this you should remember, this was on the basis of origin. Origin means from where we are getting. Kahan se originate hota hai ye resource. Next is on the basis of exhaustibility. Clear? Renewable resources. the resource which can be renewed or reproduced by physical, chemical, or mechanical process. Clear? For example, solar and wind energy, water, clear, forests, etc. This you have been doing time and again. Next, non-renewable resources. These occur over a very long geological time, minerals and fossil fuels. That's why we say that when we discussed sustainable development yesterday, that why I give the example of carpool. We know that these resources, fuels, are in limited quantity with us. It is not that we have inexhaustible resources of these. So what we should do if we are doing carpooling, it means we are saving on fuel. If we are using public transport in place of individual transport, again, we are saving on fuel. Clear? So if we are saving on these things, it means that we are preserving these resources. Clear? That's why when we talk about LPG in our house, we all use. Okay? How many of us use solar cookers? And we know that India comes in tropical countries. And here we have sunlight, almost excess of sunlight almost throughout the year. Clear? Very few, one or two, you can say during extreme winters or maybe during monsoon. 15 days or altogether 1 or 1.5 months, we don't see. But otherwise, we have good sunlight. Clear? And this sunlight can be very easily used free of cost. Very good. If you are using solar cooker, so we must use solar cooker, and it is free of cost. The sunlight is free of, and the government gives subsidies to us in buying solar cooker. And the food which we cook is nutritious, and it is not there then we can cook only few things. We get a whole recipe book with the solar cooker. I think so you did it in science also. Some of you made the model also of solar cooker. So we must use such resources. Like these days, many people have started using the solar panels and they are producing electricity with that. That's a very good initiative. Now, next, on the basis of ownership. Clear? Individual. These are those resources which are owned privately by the individuals. Clear? Something which belongs to me, to an individual. Many farmers own land which is allotted to them by the government against the payment of revenue. So these can be examples of pasture land, ponds, water wells, etc. Clear? Houses and other property. ये जो हमारी है, जो हमने purchase की हुई है. Next is community owned resources. There are resources which are accessible to all the members of the community. जैसे हमने ये कल बात की थी ना, public transport है, parks हैं, ponds हैं, areas हैं, like where we go for a walk. ऐसे कई grounds भी होते हैं, clear, which can be used by anyone. So there are some example: village common grounds, burial grounds, village ponds, public parks, etc. Next is national resources. National resources, technically all the resources belong to the nation. Technically means that because when we are staying in the country India, clear, तो उस time पे हमारे जो resources चाहे हमने खरीदे हैं, clear, but they actually belong to the country. अब हुआ ना, जैसे जब मैंने आपको बताया, जब हम displacement की बात करते हैं, हमने कहा था ना, what can be development for one may not be the development for the other. I gave you the example of the 6 laning of the project. ठीक है, 6 laning का था, उसमें मैंने आपको बताया था कि some shops which were near to the road where widening had to be done, so the government have acquired those. Clear? उसकी जगह पे government ने compensation दे दिया. तो पहले वो क्या थी, वो individual property थी ना, हमने खरीदा हुआ था, वहां पर जगह हमने अपनी शॉप बनाई हुई थी. बट जब कंट्री की रिक्वायरमेंट की बात आई, तो द गवर्नमेंट हैज द अथॉरिटी, क्लियर, टू परचेज. उन्होंने वो एरिया जो उनको रिक्वायर्ड था वाइडनिंग ऑफ द रोड्स के लिए, दे हैव एक्वायर्ड. क्लियर? एंड वी हैव टू गो बाय द गवर्नमेंट ऑर्डर्स. गवर्नमेंट हैज गिवन अस द कॉम्पनसेशन. इट मींस कि कहीं ना कहीं टेक्निकली जो सारी प्रॉपर्टी है वो कंट्री की है, चाहे इंडिविजुअल ने खरीदी है, चाहे कम्युनिटी उसको यूज कर रही है. Okay, I hope you have cleared this. The country has legal powers to acquire even private property. So this thing has come in the next line only. For public good. You might have seen roads, canals, railways being constructed on fields owned by some individuals. तो ये मैंने आपको अभी उसका एग्जाम्पल क्लियर कर दिया है, ठीक है. All the minerals, water resources, forest, wildlife, and land within the political boundaries and oceanic areas up to 12 nautical miles. Clear? In the ocean, अब आपको पता है Indian Ocean, आपने फिर again I'll give the reference of 9th standard. You know that we used to do one question you did, that how the location of India was beneficial. Clear? Because at that time the trade route used to be from the Indian Ocean. Ships used to travel and we could benefit because India's peninsular area protruding or Indian boundary से लेके 12 nautical miles, clear, का जो area है, that belongs to, so that approximately comes to 370 kilometers का जो area होता है हमारे land area से sea के अंदर तक, वो उस कंट्री को बिलोंग करता है. क्लियर? एंड लाइक एनी शिप्स पासिंग बाय दैट विल गिव अस टैक्सेस. हम उनसे टैक्सेस ले सकते हैं अगर वो शिप्स हमारे एरिया में से निकल के जाती हैं. क्लियर? सो देयर इज अ वेरी गुड स्टोरी अबाउट व्हाई इट इज कॉल्ड नॉटिकल माइल्स. क्लियर? फ्रॉम द वर्ड, अब ये एन के साथ है, अदरवाइज अगर हम देखें नॉट, KNOT, क्लियर, तो उसमें के साइलेंट होता है. नॉट का मतलब होता है गांठ लगाना, रस्सी पे गांठ लगाते हैं ना हम, ठीक है. तो इसी तरह जब शुरू में ये जर्नीज शुरू हुई, शिप के थ्रू जर्नीज शुरू हुई, तो उस टाइम पे हमारे पास जो मेजरमेंट की थी, हमारे पास ऐसा जो आजकल हमारे पास है टेक्नोलॉजी वैसी नहीं थी. ठीक है, आजकल तो हमारे पास कंपास है, हमारे सारे एरियाज, डायरेक्शंस हमें पता चल जाते थे. तो उस टाइम पे जो सेलर्स होते थे वो क्या करते थे, what they used to do, that they used to take a big rope with them. Clear? और जैसे शिप स्टार्ट हुई, वहां से एक जगह से चली और कुछ डिस्टेंस तक जाके वो क्या करते थे, उस रोप पे एक नॉट लगा देते थे. ठीक है, जैसे अब हम एक मीटर क्लॉथ को देखते हैं ना, जनरली 39 इंचेस इज 1 मीटर ऑफ क्लॉथ. ठीक है, आपने कभी देखा होगा शॉप पे वो कैसे उसको मेजर करते हैं ना, जैसे हमें 4 मीटर 5 मीटर कपड़ा खरीदना है, तो इसी तरह वो सेलर्स क्या करते थे कि उस रोप के ऊपर, जैसे अब वो एक डिस्टेंस उन्होंने सेट किया होता, इतना हमने ट्रेवल कर लिया, तो रोप पे एक नॉट लगा देते थे. ऐसे ही तरह फिर नेक्स्ट लैप जब वो ट्रेवल कर लेते थे उतना फिर एक नॉट लगा देते थे. ठीक है, तो उसके बाद क्या करते थे, जब वो अपने डेस्टिनेशन पे पहुंच जाते थे तो वो नॉट्स काउंट कर लेते थे, 1 2 3 4. सपोज मैंने 1-1 किलोमीटर के बाद नॉट लगा दी. ठीक है, तो मैंने यहां से लेके आई हैव ट्रेवल्ड टू जलंधर, सो दैट इज 20 किलोमीटर्स. तो मैंने 20 नॉट्स लगा दी अपने रोप पे, तो मुझे वहां जाके पता लग गया कि मैं कितना ट्रेवल करके आई हूँ, 20 किलोमीटर्स ट्रेवल करके आई. सो आफ्टर एवरी, so from that knot, the word nautical miles. This also I read a story in Children Digest. So you must read the extra reading, such good stories. I also didn't know. So I read ones in Children Digest. There is very good information in that magazine. So you must read these things. So you come to know about interesting things which you read otherwise in text. जब आप सिर्फ टेक्स्ट पे ही फोकस करते हो तो कई बार आपको बोरिंग लगना शुरू हो जाता है कि ठीक है ये क्या है, कितना बोरिंग है. पर जब उसको हम उसके रिलेटेड कोई चीजें कहीं पढ़ते हैं, Children Digest, see it's for children but I always read it. It has very interesting facts. Clear? So as I have shared this one story with you, so similarly if you will read such things in small magazines, so you will get entertainment also, and at the same time you will get knowledge knowledge also, right? Excuse me. So next is international resources. There are international institutions which regulate some of the resources. जैसे हमारी organizations, UNO है, ठीक है ना, it is an international organization of different countries in the world. Similarly, international resources, there are international institutions which regulate some resources. The oceanic resources beyond 200 nautical miles of the exclusive economic zone belongs to the open ocean. जितना हमारा एरिया है वो है, बट उसके बियॉन्ड जो ओशन एरियाज हैं, that is international territory, that doesn't belong to any individual country. Clear? So belong to open ocean, and no individual country can utilize these without the co-occurrence of international institutions. कि international institutions हैं हमारे और हम सब उनके मेंबर हैं, तो उनकी परमिशन के बगैर जो इंटरनेशनल बाउंड्री है उसको हम अपने इंडिविजुअल पर्पस के लिए यूज नहीं कर सकते. Clear? So today we'll read till here only. So I hope what we have read is clear to you.